Hey guys, this is Russ Miller with Umpqua Feather Merchants out of Louisville, Colorado. I'm up here today in the headquarters of Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, hanging out with Alec Gerbeck, talking about all the goodies from Umpqua.
All right, Russ. Well, now we get to talk about my favorite topic with Umpqua, and it's flies. And just wanted to go over some of the most popular or trending flies, both in fresh and saltwater. And first wanted to start in the freshwater world, as it's kind of more localized to what we do here on an everyday basis. And let's talk about some of the most trending flies right now in the dry fly category.
Yeah. In the trending dry fly category, we'll start with three, because we could go all day on this. The Thunder Thighs from Eric Paramore continues to be one of our best-selling hoppers, and for good reason, man. It's got killer movement, it's super realistic looking, and it floats like a cork. So it continues to do well. We've got it in a bunch of different colors to dial in kind of that fishery, give them a little different look.
Yeah, it's Eric's a local guy, and any local around here is going to have Thunder Thighs in their box in every color coming very soon. It's we're all looking forward to hopper time, and before you know it, that's going to be pretty much all that's on the end of anyone's line.
That sounds awesome. And then a hatch and a fly that kind of continues to always be exciting. Stone flies and Mike Lawson's Henry's Fork foam stone has been a staple in people's boxes forever. That one hasn't lost popularity, and it hasn't lost any effectiveness out on the water either, which is super cool.
Yeah, bins are full in every fly shop around here of those things. I think everyone loves that more kind of muted wing, and still has a very natural look to it, not too gaudy or flashy sort of thing.
Yeah, if you want to prospect with it too, it can hang a dropper extremely well, and also be just a great single. Mm-hmm. And the third one that we'll talk about is just kind of like a little techie chubby, Umpqua Stubby Chubby. And it features our stubby T hook, which is a wide gap, V-lock, bend to it, micro barb, and just some really cool kind of colors to it. It's got a hot tag in both pink and orange, a blended wing, and we've got it in both a black and a tan body, so it covers a ton of different sizes and goes all the way down to an 18. So you can get real techie with it, which is cool.
Yeah, I love that fly. It plays as a little stone fly, an ant, you name it. And that stubby T hook, that's such a beautiful, sticky hook. That V-lock is great for, throwing a dropper off of it. It really seems to lock it in place too. So definitely recommend to anyone if they haven't tried that stubby T. It's such a cool hook and fly.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they haven't tried it at this point.
I mean, those two are matched, obviously. Like that hook was designed with that fly. It's kind of the perfect setup for those. So, that's a couple dries. Let's jump into nymphs. Obviously, a staple in most parts of the states here throughout the year. So,
yeah, Montana nymphing is the dry dropper. So we've got some cool nymphs. And these nymphs have been, they're definitely in the South Rockies, kind of Colorado, Utah, big staples there. We've got the Perdigon Revolution. We're lucky to have Antonio Rodriguez as one of our tyers. Antonio is part of the Portuguese team that helped develop this fly, and so the Spanish Perdigon, available in some really cool colors. And the beauty of these flies is that incredibly slender profile that just plummets through the water. So underneath that dry fly, you get super good depth penetration. And for mayflies, they're tough to beat, some of these little Perdigons.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how quick those small flies and even relatively small tungsten bead on it sink. When I tie flies, I'm often like trying to oversize my beads, and really those Perdigons, when they're designed like that, they just cut through the water so quickly, and they're not going to bring your dry fly down with them, sort of thing. Yeah,
super cool. And the other side of it is droppers that have a little bit more movement, right? Where the Perdigon maybe lacks that. Something like the Hustler from us, which is a Josh Graffin pattern. is a really great one, right? It's kind of got that hare's ear bugginess to it. It's got one of Umpqua's jig bomb beads, which is a really heavy bead, so it gets down quickly, and a lot of CDC around it. So it's kind of like this really cool techie hare's ear. Works as well as a caddis, a drake nymph, all that kind of stuff. And we've got that in 2 colors.
Yeah, I was just fishing it this weekend actually, and yeah, there were caddis and drakes happening at the same brown and grays, and this thing was really kind of lending itself to all those different larval stages, and it was killing it. Such a great fly. These Euro style flies aren't necessarily designed to be super realistic looking, but they lend themselves so well to so many different things that they're so effective.
Yeah, they play nice, and then you get something that's totally out of left field in the same Euro world, like the blowtorch. And you look at it and you're like, what trout would eat this stupid looking thing? And then you finally tie it onto the end of your line. You're like, lots of them, it turns out. So the blowtorch is another really cool kind of attractor style compy fly that, again, plays really nice in the Montana nymphing world.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a tag. It comes in purple, all sorts of different stuff. But yeah, if you haven't tried that thing, you're mistaken. You should definitely give it a whirl. So then last but not least, obviously we love chucking the big streamers up here. What are some hot streamers right now by Umpqua?
Yeah, the Swim Coach by Charlie Craven is a huge hit for us. It kind of takes cues from intruder-style flies in the steelhead world and translate that over into a high-profile but low-mass streamer. So swims extremely nice, articulation point in there, but makes it easy to cast on like a 6-weight or even a 5-weight if you get the baby Swim Coach, which is super cool too.
Yeah, I've always loved that about Charlie's flies, is coming in multiple sizes. And interesting colors too. He kind of goes outside the box a little bit, and often they stand out in a big box of streamers. You're like, ooh, this one's kind of different. I like this. So I always love it. A good Charlie Craven streamer.
Yeah, and then another one that's been doing extremely well for us is John Bond's Dragon. John was a big fish hunter on the Yellowstone here before he took off for greener pastures in Norway. But that is a high-profile fly to the max. Pushes a ton of water. Gets noticed in dirty water, gets noticed in clear water, in those low light scenarios, and just a real getter.
Yeah, it's one of those swing for the fences size streamers. You look at it, it's like, oh man, if I tie that on, something big's going to eat it. We all have a few of those for sure.
Yeah, and then on the last that continues to do really well for Umpqua is Chuck Craft's Krelex, and it's a little bit more snackable size. And one of the things we all like about it, and I think the reason it continues to do so well, is that it's one of those, it's straight flash fly. Mm-hmm. And so it does well in bright scenarios, it does well in low light scenarios, it does well in clear water, it does well in dirty water.
Yeah, I mean, for being a flash fly too, that it has these different color options, sinks super quick just because it's that synthetic flash and it's durable. Mm-hmm. We definitely throw a lot of those up here.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a little look at some of the Umpqua trending flies, and we've got so many to cover. It's hard to pick 9 upstairs, but a couple of them to look at.
Great, thanks. So Ross, I want to talk a little bit more about flies again. We're going to be talking in the saltwater department now, though. And what's maybe a little different is there's less variety because there's more confidence in saltwater flies as they're proven, over the years and what the guides are used to. So we're going to break this a little bit differently than we did with the freshwater. And I want to start with let's call it the old reliables, the things that the staples, the things that have been around forever and have continued to prove their worth, and then transition into kind of the newer trending flies that are definitely making it into a lot of our saltwater anglers' boxes. So why don't you tell me a little bit about a couple of the old reliables?
Yeah, I think anyone that's taken a trip to the flats has gotchas in their box. It's just such a great fly. Tons of sizes, tons of colors, tons of weights, and we just continue to produce tons of these at our factories for anglers traveling the globe.
Yeah, it's funny when we, get pictures from our guests, or, when we're getting ready, you open up a fly box of folks going to the Bahamas or something like that, and it's gotchas. Just all different sizes and weights and everything. It's in its name. It's just such a good fly. Bonefish love it and will continue forevermore.
It seems like it never wears out as far as effectiveness too, which is great.
Yep.
Kind of continuing on that same thing, the Christmas Island Special is another one of those that like eventually you'd think you'd lose its effectiveness, but it just never seems to. It's been a great pattern for us since it came out and continues to do extremely well. I would imagine for a lot of your anglers traveling the globe.
Yeah, it's obviously named after one of our more exotic places for bone fishing, being Christmas Island, but it's got applications everywhere. Very popular fly in the Seychelles as well, and yeah, it's just going to be a little bit more sparsely dressed. It's going to have a very unique kind of painted eye on its barbells and some different flash options.
Yeah, and in that same realm, the squimp's been another one of those that just kind of has proven itself on a lot of different fisheries and is in a lot of different anglers' boxes for good reason.
Yeah, that's another requirement. If you're going to go down to like Ascension Bay or something like that, that's always in there. It's funny, a lot of our Seychelles clients are using them more and more for like triggerfish and permit and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a great fly.
Yeah, and all of these have, I think, important. The hook is such a kind of key part of that, to be able to have that variety of different species that you can chase on some of these too.
And yeah, you're bringing up a good point. One of the most important things for saltwater anglers is the integrity of the hook, and tying on those Tiemco hooks is quite a nice feature. You have a lot of confidence in them.
Yeah. Continuing to go on kind of our staples in a lot of our boxes and staples in the Umpqua catalog. The flats crab is high up there, and not long ago we kind of did a revamp of this fly, and we've got it in both a standard color and a mottled color, and now we've got them like little micro crabs, so kind of teched out on those, which is super cool too.
Yeah, that's one I don't tie anymore because Umpqua ties them so good. They're such a pain to get so thin and the legs right, and yeah, I don't know how their factories do it, but it's really nice to have them all the way down to size 8, I think it is, and the different modelings. It's definitely a Belize staple for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool transition patterns in a lot of this stuff between old and new that's really bridging the gap as we continue to release new colors of it is the Tarpon Toad by Gary Merriman. And Gary came up with this one a long time ago to kind of have that slower sinking, kind of neutral, in-their-face tarpon fly, and continues to feed us new colors that not only anglers can see better, but continue to get bites as those fish get more and more pressured down in the Keys.
That's it. Just having a little variation out there. The next 4 boats might be fishing, chartreuse and yellow or something, and yeah, there's some really cool kind of peachy and different colors like that look really great.
Yeah, and you can see it, 70 feet effectively too.
Yeah.
And kind of transitioning into the newer world, right? We've got some awesome new flies that really have started to become staples of their own anymore, but are relatively new. And Urel Flexo is one of those flies.
Yep, it's definitely gotten a lot more popular. Thankfully, I don't have to tie it as much anymore. But it's proven itself in a lot more destinations than I ever thought it would, which is so cool. Obviously, born in the Seychelles, but it's finding itself all over the globe as a very effective bonefish, triggerfish, and permit fly. I've also talked to people on the East Coast catching, stripers on the flats with them, to yellowfish down in South Africa, to you name it. So I'm not saying I designed it for all those things, but it's a great bug.
Nice to have the crossover, right?
It sure is, yep.
Yeah, another kind of local tires fly that's made its way around the globe is Doug's Danger Muffin crab. And that's been an awesome one for Umpqua. Doug's a permit. He loves chasing the blacktails around the flats, and I think that's a fly that unbelievably realistic and super fishy.
Yeah, I mean, as a saltwater tyer myself, I look up to Doug with his creativity. It's such a unique crab pattern that's a lot of purpose-built features into it. From the kind of carabus having some movement and a certain buoyancy, so it sinks just right and everything. It's such a cool fly, and our anglers are using it a lot down in kind of southern Belize and Honduras, things like that.
We also have another crab that's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's a big tournament winner, which is the Strong Arm Merkin by Dave Skoke, and that's been a wild fly. It's got a long history before it hit the bins, which is kind of cool, and I don't know if those guys are ready to have that secret get out, but anglers are now fishing that one all over the place.
Yeah, we're seeing, all sorts of different variations of it, but at the end of the day, you want Skoke's version. It is, with me working with you in the past, I know how hard it was to create the exact replica of what he wanted because it fishes a certain way when it's tied right. So yeah, it is just one of those confidence flies when you're casting to permit. It's going to do its job. It's just up to that horrible fish if it wants to eat it or not.
And I think that one of the Drew Chacon's one of our awesome saltwater tires, and he's got a fly called the Tide Slave, which is just such a cool bug. All of his flies are Umpqua staples, kind of in our new modern age, and but the Tide Slave I think is a super unique bug.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking to boxes full of gotchas or something like that. His characteristic to me anyway that stands out is he throws little different accents to flies, whether it's a rubber leg or a hot spot or something, and I think those are good kind of flies when you need to change it up a little bit. And yeah, we have a lot of anglers using them down in the Gulf that really like those flies. Yeah,
I mean, you got to keep coming with something new, and that's one of the things we continue to work on at Umpqua, is just always bringing new tires into the mix, new patterns in the mix to kind of keep flies fresh in front of fish, alongside so many of our key staples that are never going to wear themselves out, it seems like.
Well, Russ, thanks so much for taking the time to come all the way up here to Bozeman, Montana, for the beer, bugs, and brats, and to have a great sit down with us and kind of talk through some of the latest and greatest of Umpqua.
Hard to think of a better way to spend a weekend. So I appreciate you guys having us up here. It's been a blast.
Thanks. And feel free to stop by the shop. Everything we've talked about today is going to be available here or online. If you want more information about all this stuff that we've been talking about, check out both yellowdogflyfishing.com or umpqua.com.